everybody. My name is Abir Algawi. I'm the Assistant Director with Engage New Mexico. I'm so excited that you guys were able to join us and provide such, valuable information to our community.
Well, thank you. And we're really excited to be here too.
Do we want to wait a couple minutes, or are we good to go ahead and start letting people in?
I think Kat might be trying to get in. Kat Trujillo is our last youth mentor, Kat Trujillo. Yeah.
There's an Annie Quintana Edens waiting and Gabriel Chris.
I think that the other Annie Quintana is Kat.
Oh, it's Kat.
Oh,
Okay, just a minute.
Related to her, sorry.
Oh,
everyone is
okay.
Annie.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. Summer, can you change Kat's name on Kat's name on Kat's screen when she comes up as Annie?
She can just click the 3 dots next to her name and change it.
Okay. Oh, how funny. Hey, Kat. Technology is crazy, you all.
Indeed.
Annie, this is hilarious, Annie.
Sorry, I realized it's because I forwarded the link. And I didn't realize it would do that. Sorry about that, guys.
No worries.
That's okay. No worries.
Guys, quick housekeeping question. At what point I'm going to be the timer for today. So at what point should I let a little sound go off if you guys are getting close, like a minute, 2 minutes, 5-minute warning? What do you think?
I think like a 5-minute warning. I think the longer amount of time for me personally is like better.
Okay. Sounds good. And cool. we're going to leave like 15, 20 minutes for discussion. So we have lots of time for discussion. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll just unmute myself when it's about 5 minutes before the end of the presentation is supposed to be over. And I will play a little sound on my phone.
Okay, so Michelle, you're saying you'll warn us like 5 minutes before the talking part, before the discussion.
The talking part, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Hey, welcome, Kat.
Hey, sorry I'm late. I'm just getting home from work.
No worries. You can change the name, Annie Quintana Edens, by clicking those 3 dots up there, Summer, right? The 3 dots.
That's right. Yeah, you just hover over your name, hover over those 3 dots, and it should say rename.
Are we ready to let people in? It's 4:30.
So it's 4:30.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, shall we go ahead and get started? Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. My name is Lori Martinez, and I'm the Executive Director of Engage New Mexico, and we are very pleased to welcome you this afternoon to the 4th community learning session that we've held. This is part of the Success Partnerships launch of the Countywide K through Career Coalition. And we are really privileged today to have students from the Lab Learning Action Buffet. So real quick, I'm gonna walk you through just a little bit of housekeeping for these community learning sessions, and then I will turn things over to them. So these community learning sessions are, they're part of the launch of the Countywide K through Career Coalition of the Success Partnership, as I mentioned. And really what we're looking at is how do we really utilize all the incredible expertise and talent and people that we have in our area who can speak into education. And so it's especially appropriate, of course, to have students here with us today talking to us about their work and sharing their voice. And so these community learning sessions are an opportunity for all of us to learn and grow from our local community experts and to have time for Q&A and discussion and really think about what is this, how does what they have to say, what does it mean for us? What does it mean for our work? What does it mean for our lives? We'll have a little bit of time for, there will be a presentation, there will be time for Q&A after. We ask people generally to save questions for the end. And if you need clarification along the way, to pop your questions in the chat, and we'll flag our speakers for that. And then at the end, when we do Q&A, we do ask people, because we're cramming a lot of information into 1 hour. And so when we do discussion and Q&A, we ask people to try and keep it generally to 1 to 2 minutes, just so that everyone has a chance to speak who wants to. And so if there's not any questions with that, then we will go ahead and proceed. The Lab Learning Action Buffet provides opportunities for youth ages 15 to 25 to design a future of health, meaningful work, economic independence, and social justice through art, communication, and action. And we're so excited to have them here today. So with that, I will turn it over to the students and to Michelle.
Thank you so much, Lori. Thank you so much, everyone. Can you see the PowerPoint? Thumbs up. All right. So thank you all for joining us. The Lab Youth Voice Matters team is very grateful to have this opportunity to present From Theory to Practice, Youth Advocating for Education Transformation. My name is Michelle Valverde, as Lori mentioned, and I'm the Lab Learning Action Buffet Manager / Facilitator. I've been an equity advocate for about 30 years or so, and I recognize a couple of you who have joined us today. Thank you so much. Our Youth Voice Matters youth leaders and mentors will also introduce themselves before we dive into the presentation. So Kat, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hi, my name is Kat Trujillo. I'm a lab youth mentor here. I'm also a student at New Mexico State University. I am majoring in theater right now with a specialization in costume making. I also have 2 associate degrees from Doniana Community College. One is in arts in sketch, and then the other one is in science with a specialization in STEM. And I'll hand it over to Ms. Annie now.
Thank you, Kat. My name is Annie Quintana Edens. I am also a youth mentor with the lab. I've been with the lab since 2018. I'm currently a master's student at UNM in the environmental management program, and my thesis research will focus on governance and urban geography. I've worked in government and in the community, always with the goal of bolstering people in southern New Mexico. So now I'll turn it to Andreas to introduce himself.
Thanks, Annie. Hi, everyone. I hope your afternoon is going great. My name is Andres Uribe. I am currently a youth leader for the Lab's Youth Voice Matters project, and I'm also a student at Arrowhead Park Early College High School here in Las Cruces. I'm planning on graduating with a high school diploma as well as an Associates of the Arts, in hopes that I'll attend MSU to get a bachelor's in government, because I'm really passionate about this sort of stuff and really want to see change here at home for the benefit of young people and for all generations to come after. I'll now pass it over to Carmen.
My name is Carmen Bell. I'm also a youth leader at the Learning Action Buffet and a senior at Alma de Arte Charter. I plan on majoring in education and minoring in Spanish so I can continue to teach my community here. And I'm going to hand this back over to Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for those introductions. So we'd like to get a feel for who's joining us today as well. So in the chat, can you please drop your name and maybe your hat or 2 hats or whatever, early childhood educator, post-secondary faculty, nonprofit leader, elected official. If you can just do that right now, that way we can get a feel for who's joining us. And as you're doing that, real quick, I'm going to build on what Lori mentioned about the lab. We are a young nonprofit in Las Cruces. Our focus is youth leadership development through art, communication, and action. Current major projects include our youth-driven radio hour on KTAL LP 101.5 FM. It airs on Saturdays at noon. And we're also a member of Generation Justice's Narrative Shift project. In addition to those two major projects of ours, the lab is also leading a youth-driven public awareness campaign as part of our Creating Equity in Education project. We call it the C project. The youth-driven public awareness campaign is the focus of the presentation today, and the primary purpose is to help create a more fertile context for education transformation in New Mexico. So like Engage New Mexico, the Success Partnership, and probably all of you on this Zoom, the lab recognizes that improving education in New Mexico, it's all of our responsibility. We also recognize that transformation begins with greater awareness about what equity in education is and how we can achieve it. Hence, the development of our public awareness campaign. So let me see who we've got today. All right, yes, we've got retired educator, education coordinator. Good to see you, Cheryl. And we have staff of Beer People with Engage, Vanessa. Oh, we've got public health person, Summer, yes. All right. And Judith Quintana is one of the lab board members is joining us. Thank you so much. Michelle with Engage, awesome, Success Partnership. Let me see who else. Lori, nice. Anita Hernandez, yes. Someone from my past at NMSU. Fantastic, all right. So again, thank you to everyone for joining us. A little caveat before we get into the meat. We're gonna move back and forth between presenters a little bit, and it can be tricky on Zoom. So please bear with us, but don't worry, we're not gonna test you. You don't have to remember who did which part of the presentation. So, all right, so over to you, Andreas.
Thanks. Okay. So before we really get into detail about it, I'm just gonna give a brief overview of the agenda today and what we'll be discussing. So firstly, we'll go ahead and go in an overview about our public awareness campaign, which includes education equity, our recommendations, which there are 5, but today we're only going to be presenting 3, our public awareness resource documents, and then we'll go ahead and transition to getting into the details of the first 3 recommendations, then go ahead and move on to the call to action, and then we'll end off our discussion, or we'll end off here today with a discussion. And now, with that being said, I'll now pass it over to Kat to talk more about our public awareness campaign.
Thank you, Andres. So an overview of our public awareness campaign. So while developing our public awareness campaign, we brainstormed a lot about this. It took us quite some time to really kind of like set these things down and really pinpoint what we wanted to talk about. So we talked about the shift in like public perception in New Mexico, and when it comes to like transforming education, we know we needed shifts about like what it meant to students to have education centered around something meaningful to them, what we need to achieve to get there, and how the public can also support that change and make it possible to get there, and for students to feel like it's actually something they are seeing change and feeling the change in. So that's when we created our 3 messages and our recommendations, and we decided to target 3 different audiences, which are the state leaders, the general public, and then young people. And we developed also a list of the 5 recommendations to help transform the education. And today, like Andres said, we're only going to be touching on the first 3 recommendations. And recommendation 1 is redefining the purpose of education. 2 is redesign the education system. 3 is reconstruct the curriculum. 4 is transform the teacher pipeline. 5 is fund education sufficiently. And so we refer to different things whenever we're talking about like 1, 2, and 3. 4 and 5 are going to be mainly centered for like Transform Education, Tribal Education Alliances, and then Voices for Children because of the way they're structured. But the first recommendation is, of course, to redefine the purpose of education for students. And we feel like the first three, especially, and then to redesign the system and reconstruct the curriculum is something that students really themselves have voiced, and we've heard that they feel need to be changed. And before we get into the recommendations, we're gonna share some sample material with you. And this is our education equity video, and I hope you all enjoy it.
Thank you, Kat.
Lead the future, create change, engage civically, bridge gaps. Here at the lab.
Changing the educational system is a passion of mine that speaks directly to why I do what I do. And the lab is directly connected to that. And one of the ways that I see the lab really influencing the charge for creating change in education is ensuring youth's voice are present when those decisions are being made in policies, in practices, in programs. So really advocating for youth's voices to be part of that decision-making process. That is so, so important.
The lab wants to see a more equitable education system in which all students feel that they are represented, and also that they can feel that when they look at their history, when they look at other subjects of their coursework, that they can see themselves in the education system. We want to see that equity and that students have those needs that to be fulfilled.
I think the lab has had a really good impact on being able to start change for the education system, at least, because we do talk to representatives, to senators. We are reaching out to, state leaders and hoping that they are hearing us and want to talk to the youth, wanting to talk to, young adults about how they can better structure the education system.
The education system must start with our hearts and put our communities at the center.
The state needs to invest in our students, educators, and educational infrastructure.
It's time to 1. Redefine the purpose of education. 2. Redesign the whole public education system. 3. Reconstruct the curriculum. 4. Transform the teacher pipeline. And 5. Fund education sufficiently.
Successful education systems have the support and engagement of the public. Are you ready to share your ideas for educational transformation?
We're counting on everyone in New Mexico, advocating to ensure all students thrive in education.
So on our website, we do have where people can sign up to do our equity pledge, and they can also get more resources there. And then also with our equity pledge, we have organizations signed, community leaders, and so that's also a really great way to get on the lab and get to know what the lab is really about.
Visit us at our website, social media, or tune into KTAL LP 101.5 FM on Saturdays at 12 p.m.
Okay, thank you guys, and I hope you all enjoyed that. I am gonna hand it over to Annie to talk about a podcast in our radio hour.
Thank you, Kat. So the podcasts that we created for this project target the same three audiences that we are speaking to in our written campaign materials. Since we are an organization that is familiar with engaging with the public in an auditory way, we decided to use a mixed media approach to this project as well. So the three podcasts target state leaders, the general public, and young people. The voices that you hear in them are ours, the lab youth, and also Dr. Valverde. So the podcasts are speaking to the audience in an impactful way, as our mission is to get people thinking and interacting. They are short and strong because we have them airing on the radio, our social media, and on our website. They are meant to spread the word about our mission and our public awareness campaign. So we also, in conjunction, did interviews for our educational equity project that are more of like a dialogue between myself, the other lab leaders, with community members, students, and educators on their experience with the public education system here in New Mexico, And that is more of like a long form interview that we aired on our radio hour. And they're also available on our social media and our website if you want to listen to them. So the role of these interviews in the project is not just to talk with the community, but to engage and listen, to build understanding and awareness for people's experiences. So now we're going to listen to our State Leaders podcast. Hope you enjoy.
All right, here we go.
Hi, are you an elected, appointed, or hired state leader?
Have you seen the People's Solution for Public Education?
The People's Solution is clear. State leaders must start with our hearts and put our communities at the center.
The state needs to invest in our students, educators, and educational infrastructure. It is time to 1. Redefine the purpose of education. 2. Redesign the whole public education system. 3. Reconstruct the curriculum. 4. Transform the teacher pipeline. 5. Fund education sufficiently.
We know successful education systems have state leaders who hold themselves accountable. Are you doing what is needed to redefine success and support transformational change?
We're counting on you to ensure that all students have the opportunities to succeed in education.
For more information, please visit our website at www.labLC.org/public-awareness-campaign.
Brought to you by the Southern New Mexico Equity Forum and the Lab Youth Voice Matters team with funding support from the W.K. Kellogg Foundation.
Thank you, Michelle. So in addition to our podcast, we also have our written material PDFs about our campaign.
Oops, sorry, Annie, technical glitch. Oh, there we go. Oops,
awesome.
sorry, Annie. Take 2.
Awesome. So the cover page, which you will see the first page right there, it kind of sets the tone by centering our hearts and our communities. The second page is focused on the 3 different audiences I already talked about. And the third page lays out our recommendations, which you will hear shortly, as well as a quote from a student from Las Cruces who wrote a really moving poem about their experience in public high school. The fourth page goes into detail on our recommendations, which my fellow labbers are going to talk about through the rest of this presentation. And recommendations 4 and 5, as we said, we are not going to go into detail about. If you want to look at these more in detail, you can find them in the chat or on our website. So now I'm going to turn it over to Kat for our first recommendation.
And real quick, I'm so sorry. So I don't have the option of finding the documents from my desktop in here, but I did when I do it on a Zoom. So I will make sure, Summer, if I get these documents to you, can you send them out in the follow-up email to everyone?
Absolutely. And if you wanted to share your slides too, and we'll also have the recording and the notes. So anything you want, just send it on over.
Okay, because I'm just not seeing that option here. So I'm learning something every time with the PDFs. Yeah, I had them on my desktop, and we might have some in our Google Drive, but they may not be the final drafts. So I want to make sure I get you the final drafts. Thank you. All right, back to you. I think it's heading over to Kat now. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay, so to start off the recommendations, I will be talking about recommendation 1. And the recommendation 1 is redefining the purpose of education. So the purpose of redefining the education in the state of New Mexico is to be able to offer more to society as a whole. And it's not so much geared specifically towards like a certain individual or a specific group. Students should be able to leave the system with qualities and be able to contribute, to being able to do more in society and come out with a better outcome on things, a view on life and the way they perceive it and what they want to do. So they should be able to contribute to our democracy, problem solve in the best way possible, acquire lifelong skills, be able to still learn through all phases of life, remain creative, care for one another, advocate for themselves, and live interdependently with one another. And I feel like having these, and we all, saw it the same way, that having these would build a solid foundation for students to build on and to have an advantage, because we see it as sometimes the students here in New Mexico don't necessarily have that advantage. And so redefining the purpose of education would be able to structure that a little bit more differently for students to be able to see that advantage. And it also gives them more opportunity, and it results in economic growth and satisfaction. And so I'm going to hand it over to Annie for some insights.
Thank you. Yeah, when we were discussing the purpose of education, we really dove into how education should set students up with the tools and abilities that they need, not just to be productive citizens, but whole people who are part of their community and able to contribute. Public school needs to look like the beginning of a person's lifelong education, because it is what we need for every person to live in a participatory democracy where we uplift our fellow citizens. So the next recommendation is going to be redesigning the system. Andreas will be discussing it and give more information.
Thanks, Annie. So yeah, like how Annie said, recommendation 2 is redesigning the system. So on the presentation, when on the resource document, we lay out a bunch of details about in our recommendations 1 through 3, but they can really be focused for recommendation 2. They can really be simplified to 4 main components, which is honoring our students' wholeness, community knowledge and strength, improved assessments, and also improving access to resources. And so getting a little bit more in depth into that and what that actually looks like. Firstly, when we start to look at how to honor and build on students' wholeness, that really looks at acknowledging students on their ethnic and language and also their cultural background, and really allowing students to retain that information while also growing to learn other languages in school and also learning that sort of curriculum. Another big thing too when honoring students' wholeness is also recognizing if they have a disability or if they have abilities. And so what that means is also really putting a strong emphasis on making sure that students have the resources that they need, especially if they have a disability, to also make sure that those needs are being fulfilled. Because what we've seen and what I've seen is I've known some students who have those needs that need to be fulfilled, but and many times that may not be the actual truth of what's taking place. So when we look at redesigning the system, that's another big component. And in addition to honoring our students' wholeness, another big thing is looking at their learning styles, because we know that here in New Mexico, we have a really diverse state with students from a lot of different cultural, ethnic, and many different backgrounds in general. And part of that too is learning, or a big part of that is their learning styles. So a big thing about that is focusing on the learning style that they have, and really honoring that and really building on that to ensure that they can still learn within our educational system. And moving on to the other 3 though, it's really also important for us to look at respect or having mutually respectful relationships and also putting the importance on emotional and mental well-being of students to make sure that students feel safe in their schools, and also making sure that students feel supported in whatever they do at school, and making sure that they have that support there if they ever need to go to talk to someone. And another big thing on this too is the community, acknowledging the community and family strengths and knowledge. And that really ties back to the fact that we know here in New Mexico, our state is very diverse with a lot of different history, and cultural norms across the state. And so that is really a strong emphasis, is looking at how we can infuse the knowledge from our community, from our family, and those strengths, and really bring that into our education system. Because when we're raising students, it's also really important to have them gain that knowledge of what's going on in their community and the history of their community. And that can really tie back to myself when I was growing up. And now as a high school student, I still wish a lot of the times I would have been taught more about the local community here in the Mesilla Valley, because it's so rich a lot of the times. And for me, it was a really big thing. And the last two things is improved assessments. So just making sure about how we can improve our assessments, since we know we have a large, diverse student population here in the state. And also looking at improving resource or access to resources. So making sure that students have access to technology, to books, especially since a lot of stuff is now online. We also want to make sure that students have those digital resources. But with that being said, then that's going more into detail into that. But with that being said, Annie, is there further comment that you would like to add?
Yes, so echoing what Andres was saying, we live in a beautifully diverse state, one with so many strengths, and that is what we need to draw on when we're redesigning the system for New Mexico public education. Students need more skills than just taking standardized tests. Schools should be about learning to have good interdependent relationships in and out of schooling institutions. So now I'm going to hand it over to Carmen for our third recommendation, reconstructing the curriculum.
Thank you, Annie. So as she said, our final step is reconstructing the curriculum, because our current curriculum does not represent or value the youth in our state. Our state needs to provide honest education representing its population. For the safety of our students, we need comprehensive sex education. And kids as young as 5 can be learning about subjects like consent and health. And in our social studies, students need to see their stories told. Many students do not know Black history in New Mexico, and things like Blackdom get forgotten. And I've heard many students that feel like they're out of place in their schools because of this. And LGBTQ history is completely erased and it feels non-existent. And we need to stop teaching a predominantly Hispanic population the legacy of the conquistadors. And in English class, students do not feel represented by the literature they consumed, nor are students equipped to analyze the books that they're reading in the literary canon critically. And these books are dated, and students must be taught feminist literary criticisms in high school. And Annie, if you would like to build on that.
Yes, thank you, Carmen. A large part of what we discussed when we were creating this campaign was that in order to create a curriculum that we believe would set up students for a more full and equitable life is to focus on infusing all subjects with an equity lens, so that presenting an accurate account of history and contemporary life are at the forefront, as well as incorporating civic engagement and service learning into curriculum, so that students learn to engage with their community in a much more empathetic way. So now I'm going to hand it back to Carmen for our call to action.
Thank you, Annie. So first we have our, sorry, hang on. First, we have our state leaders. I would like to call for them to keep investing in our students and our educators and our infrastructure, and to just engage young people more often. And I would like you to advocate for policies that aid for our, sorry. I would like you to advocate for policies that advocate for young people, and to just listen to them, and definitely look at what organizations like Transform Education New Mexico and Tribal Education Alliances and NM Voices for Children have been recommending. For example, Transform Education New Mexico has provided a blueprint that advocates for systems we know work in New Mexico, and Tribal Education Alliances provide resources on how we can accommodate for Native students in New Mexico. And NM Voices for Children just provides data so that you can better understand your own community. And I would like to encourage the general public to look through those resources as well and learn more about our campaign through those, and just also engage with young people more often, and just listen to the youth in your community asking for what they want to see and what they want to advocate for in their own education, and share your own ideas to advocate for the changes that you feel that you need. And for the young people, I would also like them to learn more about our campaign and share your ideas and just advocate for yourself. Thank you. Oh, and I'd like to pass this back to Michelle so that she can bring this to a conclusion.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Great job. So we're going to open it up to for a discussion. And as you all know, it is just so important to raise awareness about what equity is and how to achieve it. So you'll notice if you dig into the PDFs that all of the recommendations are based on best practices. And it's interesting because I started doing focus groups in the 90s, in around 1995, 2000, 2007. And a lot of the same themes have come up. It's important. Social emotional learning, cultural and linguistic responsive teaching. These are things, these are not new ideas. And there's a lot of literature out there about the benefits, ethnic studies. So anyway, you'll see that when you dig into our resources. And with greater awareness, the public can rally around our educators, families, and youth to help transform the education system so it works for all students. So now I'm gonna pause the share. We'll come back in a little while for some other stuff that we wanna ask you to do real quick. But in terms of the discussion, all right, I see already a comment, nice. Need for change that focuses on, so you like the plan, look inside the house schools is necessary. There are plenty of decisions, political ones made that affect underprivileged students. Yes. Thank you. Good comment. All right. Any other questions? And that is Mr. Uribe. Thank you for joining us. Andreas's dad. Thank you. An educator for 30 years. Any other questions for the team? And you can direct them to a particular youth leader, mentor, or to myself. You can put one in the chat or come off mute. I'm looking, let me see, do I see any hands?
I have a question.
Yes.
I really would love to hear about, this is a really great plan, I think, representing an amazing student voice component that we don't hear very often. So I would love to hear, like, how did you all come up with this?
Jamboard.
Yeah, we kind of took this on in the summer for about 2 weeks. We used a Jamboard, and we just kind of met every few days, and like we hardcore brainstormed and talked about, and through that Jamboard, we were able to kind of come up with these different categories, think about our audiences, and really put together exactly how we would love for our education to have gone and to continue.
I think we started with what is important to you. And Kat, were you going to say something, or who else? I heard Andreas, you came off mute.
Yeah, if I can, I want to add on what Annie said too. It's like we all come from different places here in Las Cruces, and I don't think I would have probably met with the lab team if it wasn't actually for the lab who brought us really together to focus on this, because we come from such different places in our community. We have different backgrounds and experiences with it. So like how Annie was saying, when we had those sessions where we spend a lot of time really dedicated to that Jamboard, a lot of times it was really kind of understanding each other and like where the different places we came from, our different backgrounds, and our groups, since we have our own friend groups that are related to us, and students that we grew up with and stuff like that. So it was always interesting and to hear about what other people were thinking. So just to kind of say it was really interesting to definitely, and I think it was definitely beneficial since we're from different places in our community here in Las Cruces. But
It was interesting that the themes, like I said, when that jam board, stickies, tons of stickies, and we started organizing them, a lot of the same themes that had emerged in the 90s, you know, in 2000. So, so the recommendations are really a compilation of this youth team and also kind of stuff that I had collected data over the years. And also when we looked at the Transform Education New Mexico platform, wow, just the overlap was incredible. So that's why we really lean on them for recommendations 4 and 5. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's some questions. At least looks like Anita has some questions in the chat.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Oh, thank you. Yes, let me go back to the chat. I was getting too focused.
Michelle, I was thinking, you know, with the recommendations, there's 3 recommendations and they give direction as to what is needed for education. So my question is, what are next steps? But I'm thinking that the next steps have to do with talking with legislators. And I'm wondering if there are any bills that were introduced in this session that would be related to the recommendations.
Yes, and you know what, Dr. Hernandez? The comprehensive plan, we've been trying to get in there into that whole process as part of Transform Education New Mexico, because we think the comprehensive plan, that these kinds of recommendations could be integrated. It's also to respond to Martinez Yazzie. And so, yet some of this, we have not worked on specific bills, our group, but Transform Education New Mexico certainly has. And yeah, and I think there will be specific bills that do come out in the future. But if we could have that comprehensive plan that is infused with equity, then bills can be looked at as to whether they are aligned. We had talked about that years ago. Remember, if we had a comprehensive plan, instead of just all these bills coming out of all these different places, and it's not aligned, they're not aligned vertically in the system or horizontally. So yeah, we're wanting to be at the table, and we're getting close. I mean, and the youth want to be at the table. Yeah, with the comprehensive plan.
So one of the things that I see, at least with this last session, and I've seen it in the previous sessions, the legislators come. I mean, they come here to Las Cruces, and then they have these listening sessions because they are wanting to hear, you know, what people are thinking about. So it seems to me now that with these 3 recommendations, I don't know if you feel ready to go before them or it has to be through Transform New Mexico, but it just seems like a natural next step to see what can get done. And it may not be in the next legislative session. We may be thinking 2 sessions out because all of these ideas have to be concretized.
Wow. Let's talk about it. The lab team, let's talk about whether we want to present in the interim session, like when LESC comes down here, the Legislative Education Study Committee, we can talk about whether we want to present.
Well, and I guess I'm thinking, Michelle, like what legislator would be interested in something like this to move it forward? You know, I know very few. I just know Bill Souls, Doreen. ¿Cómo se apellida Doreen? I can't remember Doreen's last name. Gallegos. But, you know, I think there's a few people. And I don't know, maybe someone in the Albuquerque area. They seem to wield a lot of power.
Yes, good point. Yes. We'll talk about that. That's a great idea. Nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I see the comment. Yes. You can see as parents, we can see some issues with the curriculum. Oh, I see a question. What have you found helps to get out your message? Well, NMCO, they filmed us, I think it was one afternoon at Pioneer Park. And I'm not sure that all of our team members were able to make it that day, but NMCO, they created the video and they created the graphics. We created those audio podcasts here in like at the office, the lab quote space here at my home office. And with the help of Lamaya Vaughn with the Doñana Community College Media Arts Department. She's our board chair and she's very adept with audio recording and editing. So we created the podcast, the audio ones here, but the graphics were created by NMCO and they created the video. And that has helped having that. And Summer, you helped with the initial heart. Summer helped us with the initial heart and our light bulb with the light bulb, apple and the heart. Summer was awesome. Thank goodness, Summer, I want to thank you because that got this all started. And then we were able to actually hire NMCO to create the video and the graphics. And that's helping so much. We have a young person who runs our social media. And Lori, I see your hand up. She runs our Instagram and our Facebook. And she's been putting out the podcasts, the graphics, and the videos. And the response has been very positive. And so, Lori, did you have a question or a comment?
Oh, no, I was just clapping for Summer because we love her graphic design.
Yes, Summer. Yeah, and I was all, Summer, we need help. I need help. We have good ideas. But anyway, and Summer helped us. It was awesome. Yes, Cheryl.
So I help a lot of different places with social media, and I haven't honestly seen anything from the lab. I was looking for it on Facebook, but I just wondered if you have a group to tag in messages so that messages get reshared and out a bit more. And I was looking for it. So I help with NEA Las Cruces, and we're happy to share that message. And I help also with community schools. And so if when you're doing your messaging, if you want to tag either of those, I can make sure that happens.
Perfect, Cheryl. Yes.
And I wondered about just connecting with students. If you have, if you're doing anything within the schools that pull students to your group, or do you have any signups or any opportunities for kids to connect?
We're going to be connecting with Enlace at Centennial High. We've connected with Andres' school. We did a Friday event at the early college high school. We want to do another one. But no, Cheryl, we're not Zoom. I mean, not Zoom. The COVID, the pandemic kind of put a damper on a lot of outreach in 2021. But yeah, we want to start having some more events and reaching out and connecting with youth. But I'll let Vanessa Urbina, she's our social media manager. I'll let her know, Cheryl, that about NEA Las Cruces and community schools. Okay, and then you can start. Yes, I am not familiar with social media at all. And she puts in a couple hours a week, but it's just helped so much to have that social media presence, but we can do more. So I'll follow up with you, Cheryl.
Okay, great. Great.
Michelle, can I add one more thing?
Yes, please, yes.
Okay. Yeah, and so like with our Youth Voice Matters group and with the public awareness campaign, we talked about sort of like how Michelle said, like where we went to Arrowhead, so my school, but we did a similar event just to get students engaged, to really get the word of the lab out there. But in regards to the public awareness campaign, this specific one, what we have talked about and we looked at was possibly doing where we invite schools, specifically one was going to be Arrowhead, to join us over Zoom, where we would provide a sort of virtual activity where it would be centered around our public awareness campaign, and that sort of thing. And also another outreach that we've actually done is going to the downtown of Las Cruces when they do their farmers market on Saturdays. So we did go one time to go ahead and promote our stuff like that. And a lot of times it was great because we got to see some youth come by who wanted to get more information about it. And we had older people who want to get more information about it. We saw a lot of retired educators as well wanting to get more, wanting to know more about it and how they could support it. So we've done those outreach in person and outside, even though it was kind of cold that morning. But it was a great thing to have that opportunity as well to really go out there, because a lot of times it was young adults getting passionate about it, and also those retired educators that went through the process and that they've expressed to us that during their own time that they wish there could have been changes that we're here promoting and that we want to see. But those are just a few of the ways that we've been trying to get our public event. Yes.
Awesome. It sounds great.
All right. So Carmen, Annie, or Kat, anything else you'd like to add, or any other questions? I see some other things in the chat. I will follow up. Yes, Michelle, awesome.
I wanted to say something that we've been trying to wrap our head around how we can do a student voice campaign within the Success Partnership. And it strikes me that this could be like a really great opportunity for us as the partnership to get with you guys who are already sort of organized and have a message. And so I know you guys would probably be interested in partnering with us and helping us like kick off it would just be like ongoing, like, maybe every couple of months we could highlight a student voice. But one of the biggest barriers that we've experienced is just how to get to the students, because you need, the video, the release forms and all these things. And so, you guys being sort of already in that environment, do you think that would be something that you could help us with and to help get your message out too, but just talking to more students and particularly students who may not get the representation normally, the students who aren't the ones to raise their hand right away, or the students that aren't on the like advisory councils, like those students, if we could get like some voices from those students too, to sort of get this message out and get other messages too that are in support of all of your goals. So I don't know if that's a question or a comment or both.
I have a question or comment or both off of your question or comment, Summer. So one thing that is happening within my program, which is Community Share, it's a way for educators to sign up to get community partners in their classroom. And we have 3 of GSAs on the platform. So from Mayfield, Arrowhead, and Centennial, the sponsor of I don't want to misspeak because at Mayfield, it's the Gay Straight Alliance, but at Centennial, it's called the Gender Sexuality Alliance. So it depends on which school. But
We also use Gender Sexuality Alliance.
right, so it goes by a different name by different schools, I guess. So, and I'm not sure what Arrowhead has, but they've signed up on the platform to have local speakers come in, and if you have that might be a club that's already in the schools. That might be a place that you can present lab within the GSA, and then I'm sure there's some other high school clubs where that could happen.
That's so awesome. I think we can follow up, and we had actually talked about that, huh, Carmen, months ago. I think we forgot to follow up.
Right.
Yikes. Okay, so let me put that back on the radar. Yes, presenting to the GSA clubs,
Yes.
but and then there's also.
And we talked about a lot incorporating them in like our not our podcast, but like on the radio hour and things like that.
Okay.
And I think kind of like in the broader sense too as well, it'd be great to also look at club organizations at schools.
Right.
Because I've known a few at Arrowhead and at other schools who look towards doing community speakers a lot of times. And really for them, it really benefits their own membership standing because it gets more students wanting to learn more. But for organizations like the lab too would be a great way, a great avenue for us to get inside the schools and really present to those students that information. So I think that was like a really good point to bring up, that those, it's a great thing that they have clubs, and it's really a good thing to utilize those clubs through guest speakings and stuff like that.
Yes. And so Summer, I think we could, Carmen, sorry, did I interrupt?
No.
Okay. I think we could talk about maybe a partnership with the lab. We do have the permission form to get young people. We've talked about our radio hour is the lab where we people learn hands-on how to run the board, how to do interviews live. But we also have been taping interviews through Zoom, and we're going to turn our interviews into little podcasts. We've talked about that so that young people, and Annie's our lead interviewer. She's been the lead interviewer for a while, maybe a few years. And anyway, so the interviews, we could tailor interviews to capture youth stories. We can tailor the interviews however we want. And they have actually evolved over the last 3 or 4 years, our interviews. So Summer, that's something we could follow up on. I think it might be great to have the lab be a part of this. I don't know, and we'll have to talk as a team, but really trying to get youth voice out there. You already have the structure, and we have the beginning connections to youth that we can go deeper.
And if I could speak to that too, I think this is really amazing. So I love what Cheryl just said about integrating community share into as a tool. So not only for the student groups to be able to go on community share and request things that they need, like speakers to come, but also I think even what I think Andres just alluded to, which is lab students needing to get access into the schools, right? So like lab could also be on community share as saying we are, available to go talk to students about the student having student voice and advocacy, if that's something you all were, so inclined to do. But I don't know, Cheryl, is that something that you think would be an appropriate use of the platform?
So typically it has been educators. And so my thought is if the adult leaders of the group are on there on the platform, all you have to do, and I can walk you through it, and Michelle, I'm sending you that information right now. If you're on there and you set up the meeting time or what have you, then it's perfectly fine for students, to be a part of that. The profile specifically is teachers connecting with the education partner. So I can share with you how to do that, and it's kind of better to have that coordinator anyway. But specifically speaking to the GSAs, I know that's not the end all place to be, but I think it's a good first step because I know Mayfield and Arrowhead and Centennial, all three of them are on. So I can help you with how to create an offer on the platform that just says, we're the lab and we'll come and speak to your class. And then if I have more high school teachers that reach out to me, David Morales is on there from Enlace, and we helped them. And the cool thing is if there's some kind of an event that you do, then teachers can apply for a mini grant. And so if you have an event or are at an event that's already happening, you can ask for that. The educator can ask for funding for it.
Nice. And I think Kat was Mr. Morales, was he your teacher? Enlace teacher?
Yeah, Mr. Morales was my teacher for 3 years. When I was at Mayfield High School, he was my Enlace teacher. Actually, I want to say it was my second year that I was with him was the year that he won his award for Teacher of the Year. Nice. So he's by far one of the best educators I've ever come across, I've encountered, and definitely an amazing person even outside the classroom.
Yeah. He is definitely, and I had to follow David as teacher of the year, and I felt like I had the hardest job in the whole world because he handed it over to me, and so he helped me a lot as well.
Oh,
So he's an amazing guy, and he's on the platform and he's partnered already. So you know, there's a lot of ways that we can get things to happen through those connections. And I didn't put it in the chat, but you all showing up at the school board meetings and sharing voice at the school board meetings is incredibly important because we have counter equity people coming to school board meetings who are really speaking against these conversations happening and against equity and unimaginably, but it's happening at every single school board meeting, and they have a very organized agenda for how they're going to carry out you know, these conversations.
right. Thank you, Cheryl. Yes, and I saw Andrew joined us, another board member of the lab, and he's also been very instrumental in helping us. We did go out to one of the board meetings when they did pass, I think it was JBC, the policy, but I know they've gone backwards since they passed it. That was a year ago, maybe. But wow, these are good ideas, but I want to just real quick, can I shift over to sort of, I want to show you all, I'm sharing my screen real quick. And we do have a survey that we're going to send. Summer's going to send it to you all later. If you can look at the materials and then fill it out, it's very, very brief, and it helps us kind of see if we're making an impact with our awareness campaign. I think most of you were already aware when you came to this Zoom and before reading the materials, but the input from you all will still be very helpful. And so Summer will send that link out to you, and so you'll be getting that. And here's the info, Cheryl, like our Instagram account right there, our Facebook, and then the website lablc.org, and then KTAL LP 101.5 FM on Saturdays. There was a little glitch this past Saturday, so they didn't air our rerun. We do a new show every other Saturday, and the rerun, Annie, I found out it didn't get aired this past Saturday. It hasn't happened very often, but sometimes things, you know, the system has a little glitch and it doesn't work out. But anyway, so I see a couple more. Okay, thank you. Annie dumped the surveys good in the chat. We have it in English and Spanish. So, but if you'd like to fill it out right after we're done, that's cool. But if you'd also like to dig into the materials a little bit more and then complete it, that would be good too. So thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Michelle Valverde, and all the youth leaders from the Learning Action Buffet Lab. We were so thankful to have you join us and to share the wonderful work that you're doing. And thanks to Summer, who took some amazing notes, and we'll be sending all that out with the survey link. I just want to remind everybody that we are continuing the community learning sessions through April, and our next one is Tuesday, March 15th from 2 to 3 p.m. We'll be hearing from Daisy Maldonado, who's the director of Empowerment Congress of Doñana County, on youth opportunities and mentorships. Thank you all very, very much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your evening.